In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the benefits of using templates in Logic Pro and also teach you how you can create one of your own. A while back on Instagram and Facebook, I made a post kind of showing off the template that I use to start pretty much every single project that I do. I kind of shared some of the benefits of it, why I do certain things, and alluded to the fact that it allows me to make much more music in less time and stay in the creative flow. The point of this template is to basically eliminate all of the busy work or the tedious kind of left brain stuff like setting up your reverb and delay sends, organizing your track stacks or your bus groups, color coding everything, setting your sample rate, and so on. I also may or may not have been overly excited about the fact that my template has over 400 tracks in it. Many of these are software instruments with big orchestral libraries, and this template loads in just over 5 seconds. Now the reason I can do this is because I found a way to not only turn off tracks in Logic Pro, but also to disable or offload the instruments, which allows the whole template to load, and none of these instruments will actually even load until you turn them on. What this means is I can open Logic with this template and immediately start making music. I don't have to, go back and forth between loading instruments and routing and doing all the busy work. I can just stay in the creative flow and again, be much more efficient, productive, and make more music in less time. This is also extremely helpful for all the sync work that I do, because since everything is color-coded and organized and I have all my different instruments organized into their own groups, it makes the whole process of doing like alts and stems and submixes and all that kind of stuff extremely streamlined, efficient, and just very, very easy to do. After I made that post about using templates in Logic, I had a few different people comment and say that it would be very helpful to make a video showing exactly how to do that so they could do it as well. So that's what I'm doing. So first, we're going to take a look at my template and I can kind of show you some of the different benefits of it and how I have it set up, and then I'm going to recreate one from scratch so that you can do the same. All right, so in Logic, we're going to start File, New from Template. You can see I have quite a few different templates that I've created over the years. Actually, I used to have a lot more than this. I've ended up deleting a lot of them. When I first kind of discovered what templates were, I created a whole bunch of different templates, and over the years I kind of realized that instead of having specific templates for certain styles, I like to just have one massive template that has basically everything I need. However, if I'm doing some client mixing or anything like that, I might open this mixing template, or if I'm doing a sound design session, I have a sound design template here. I have another one for doing different versions of stems and alts, and then if I'm practicing piano or guitar, I might open this one. But for the purpose of this video and what I'm showing you, we're just going to start with this template here, aptly named One Template to Rule Them All. Now, as you can see, that loaded in just a little over 5 seconds. We scroll down here, you can see that I have over 400 tracks. This bottom one is an empty group, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But as you can see, I have all my different instrument groups and all the different things that I need color-coded, organized into their own folders. And so, again, a big point of this is when I'm working on a track, I don't have to go and load an instrument every time I want to use one. Let's say if I was working on a track, a big orchestral piece, and I'm hearing a melody in my head that maybe I want to have played on the trumpets. I can just go down to my brass folder here, and I'll find, maybe we'll go with my modern scoring brass trumpets here. And now you can see that I turned it on, it's actually loading the instrument. Right, much faster than having to actually go and find that instrument, load it up. And then the point I was making about offloading instruments, if you take a look here and I just turn this track off, it doesn't actually turn this instrument off. And even if I turn this off, the instrument is actually still loaded in Logic. So what you want to do instead, when this track is turned on, if you hold the Option and then hit this power button here, now you see how it kind of grayed out here? So it actually offloaded the instrument, and that's why when I loaded this template, it's not actually loading all these different instruments. However, they're still on the tracks, if that makes sense. So they don't actually load until I turn the individual track on. So as you can see, that speeds up your workflow quite a bit. Say maybe you're working on another track and you're hearing a melody that, oh, this would sound really good on Celeste. I can just go to my piano and keys folder here, find my Celeste, have that load up. Right, much faster again than having to go ahead and load everything. All right, so the next thing I want to cover is we'll look at reverb sends and delay sends. So if we look at my mixer window here and scroll all the way over to the end, you can see I have all my different reverbs and delay sends already set up here. So what this means, instead of having to set that up when I'm ready to do so, we can just look at one of these instruments, just pick a random piano, and so you see I have all these different sends already set up. And so I can send to what is my short reverb, or I can send to my medium reverb, my long reverb, and so on. And so having these already set up and ready to go just makes the whole process a heck of a lot faster. And I actually Another point that I really want to make with these templates is that you really cater it to your own workflow. So anytime I find myself doing something over and over in a session, I'll just start to implement that into my session. So one example is I found after like 4 or 5 different sessions in a row, I was constantly bringing my long reverb into my arrange window. And I was doing that because I ended up automating the reverb or doing different things to it. And so I just moved that into my arrange window as part of my template. So now when I open this template, you'll see right at the top here, I actually have my long reverb bus in the arrange window, so I can work with it here. Now, another thing I wanted to point out was the sample rate. So Logic typically defaults to 44.1, and you can't really change that. And for me, I do a lot of sync work, and the industry standard is 48K. So if we go to File, Project Settings, and Audio, you'll actually see that I have mine set to 48K. And what's nice about this is before I was using a template, I would have to go in and change this every single time. And if I forgot, then my entire session was at the wrong sample rate. So this just saves you a lot of headache having this already set up when you open your session and get to work. Another important thing that I want to point out in my template is this track at the top here you see called Premaster. And what this is, let's take a look at the mixer. So you'll notice that all my different instrument groups are all routed in the output to bus 10. So if we look at this Premaster here, the input is set to bus 10. So what that means is that all my different groups are being routed through this one channel. And the reason that I like to do this is, let's say I have the mix kind of sitting where I want, but I want to give myself a little bit more headroom. What I can do is actually just on this Premaster track here, I can just pull the volume down, and this will pull the volume down of the entire mix. Another good thing to use with this is, let's say if you're working on like an EDM track or some sort of electronic track, and you want to put like a filter sweep or some creative effect on the entire mix, I can do that right here on this Premaster track, and that keeps it separate from my master bus track or the output track. So I like to do this, it just kind of works with my workflow a little better. That way I can do all my creative processing on this Premaster channel and then keep the output channel or the master bus channel separate for all my master bus processing. One last thing I want to point out about my template, and this is huge for me in my workflow and saves me tons of time and headaches, and this kind of goes back to organizing all your different track stacks and your instrument groups and color coding them, is when it comes time to make submixes, alt mixes, different versions of your track for sync or anything else, it just makes it incredibly easy when you have everything organized like this. So let's say if I needed to export the vocals only, I can just go to this vocals folder and then solo and export that, and I don't have to worry about missing different tracks. I've seen so many different sessions and tutorials where people literally have all their tracks just not categorized, not organized, not in folders. And so as you're going through, if you have a few drums and then some vocals and guitars and then another drum you added later and everything's just kind of a mess, then when it comes time to make your different mixes and submixes and all that kind of stuff, you're just giving yourself a whole lot of headaches if you got to go through each individual track and make sure you have all the right ones soloed. And yeah, just save yourself the headache, organize your tracks and your sessions like this. And so again, yeah, if I needed to export just the drums and percussion, I can just solo this folder, and yeah, you can just save so much time. All right, now that I've showed you some of the major benefits of my template and kind of why I work this way, I'm actually gonna go ahead from the start and recreate a template from scratch. So if that's something you'd like to do, let's hop right in. All right, so from Logic, we're gonna go File, New. And we'll just start with one software instrument. Make sure this is set to empty channel strip. If you load something up right away, there's a good chance that Logic will already have some different sends and such set up, and we don't really want to do that in this video and the way that we're setting this up. So you can just copy these settings if you like, hit create. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is actually look through some of the preferences that we can set up. So we'll go up here to Logic Pro, and then Preferences, and we'll just start in General. And let's see. The first thing we want to do is go over to this Advanced tab and make sure you have all of these boxes checked. If you do not have Show Advanced Tools turned on, it's actually going to prevent you from doing a lot of different things in Logic. So once you have all these checked, we can go back to General and then Editing. This is one of my favorites. If we make sure that these two boxes here are checked, the Fade Tool click zones and the Marquee Tool click zones, I can show you in a moment what those do. But in short, when you're in the Arrange window, kind of zoom in here, and I have an app turned on that'll show my different keystrokes. You can see some of the key commands I'm doing. But when you're in the Arrange window, if you're in the bottom half of this track here, it'll actually enable you to use your Marquee tool, and then in the top half, if you have an audio file there, it'll actually use the Fade tool, which saves a bunch of time not having to actually switch to those tools. Now the rest of these settings you can kind of go through them and set them up as you like. As I said, you really want to cater this to your workflow and the way that you like your sessions. Another very important one for me is if we go to File, and then Project Settings and Audio. This is where you can set your sample rate. So for me, it actually already is set to 48. Usually by default, it'll be set to 44.1. So if you want to just make sure that this is set to whatever sample rate you work in, if you work in sync, I highly recommend using 48K. Just have that set there and it'll be ready to go every time you open this template. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna do is create an audio track. So we'll hit this little plus here and hit create. You can change these settings to whatever you need for your inputs and outputs. All right, and the next thing we're gonna do is highlight both of these together, right click, and anytime I do stuff like this and I see a key command, it's good to learn the key commands so that you can use them in the future and just speed up your workflow. So what we're gonna do is go to create track stack, and we can see that that's Shift Command D. So I'm just gonna click back in here and do Shift Command D, and then we want to create a summing stack. Now that we have this first track stack set up, we're going to go ahead and set a color for these. And actually first, let's set up our track header component. So if you right click on any of these and then go down to configure track header, you can kind of choose what you want shown in your track header. So for me, I like to have this on and off there, and then my color bars, and you can kind of go through these and again, set it to however you'd like. The freeze as well I like to have. All right, now that we have that, and we're going to make sure that all of these are highlighted, we're going to hit Alt or Option C to bring up our color choices, and you can choose whatever color you like for these. I'm just going to set a nice purple for this one. Now what we're going to do is if we actually click on this folder track here that says Sum1, and then if we do Shift Enter, that'll allow us to rename it. So I'm just going to, for the sake, name this one Empty Group first, and I'll kind of explain that in a little bit. Now if you'd like to have the Premaster Track like I did in the template I showed you, what we can do now is go to hit X to bring up our mixer, and for the output we're going to choose bus 10 for this. Now what that does, you can see here, it creates another auxiliary track. So if we highlight this track and then hit Control T, that'll actually bring it to the arrange window. And then what I like to do is just bring this one to the top. Again, Shift Enter, we'll call this Premaster, and then choose a color for it. I think I have mine on this pink up in the corner. All right, now that we have that set up, we can go ahead and set up our reverb and delay sends. So again, we'll go to the mixer window here and push X. And so actually what I like to do is make sure that I have all three of these highlighted. So your summing stack, your track stack, the software instrument, and the MIDI instrument. And then what we're going to do in the sends area is I like to start at bus 11, but we're just gonna set up bus 11 through 18. All right, so now that we have all those sends set up on these tracks, I like to go through and you can find the corresponding tracks to the right here, all these different auxiliary tracks. And so we're gonna find the one that has the input of bus 11, and we're just gonna right click down here and hit rename channel strip, and we'll make this one our short verb. We'll make the next one our medium verb. And then the long verb. And then for buses 14 through 16, I like to make these, we'll make the first one a Haas delay. And then we'll do a short delay. A long delay. And then for buses 17 and 18, I typically will have those empty. That way I can kind of just have those available in any track. So if I want to do like some parallel saturation or parallel compression or any parallel processing, I just already have those tracks available and ready to go. So now is the point, well, I guess we can color code these quick too. So we'll make all of our reverbs one color. So you can maybe pick this nice blue for those and highlight these and make our delays another color. We'll just pick a green. And then this is the point when you can actually go through and choose your different reverbs and delays of choice. For the sake of this video not being crazy long, if I went super in depth to each one of these little different things, it'd probably be an hour or two long. So I'm not gonna actually go through and load in all the different reverbs and delays. However, if that is something you want me to cover more in depth, please comment below and I can make another dedicated video to any one of these topics that we can dig deeper into. All right, so now that we have all of our sends set up, inside this track stack, I'm actually going to go to the software instrument, and we're just going to do Command D a few times. What that's going to do is just create more tracks, obviously, and then do the same for the audio. And I just like to have it set up this way so that in each one of my folders, I have both MIDI and audio tracks just so they're ready to go. So even if you're dragging in like samples or different loops or one shots, you have an audio track that's already inside the track stack and ready to go and color coded. And then what we can do is this first track stack that we created, this is just kind of gonna be our template track stack. So I actually leave this one as is, and anytime I wanna create a new folder, we're just gonna highlight this and hit Command D, and that makes a new one. So now on this one, let's say we wanna make this our piano folder. So we can just, again, hit Shift, Enter. We'll just name this Pianos and Keys. And if you want, you can expand this and then maybe choose a different color for these ones. So we'll highlight all, and then Option or Alt C, and we'll just maybe make this one blue. And then again, this is where you can go through and load your different instruments. So just to show you maybe one time, I'll go here and we'll load up Keyscape. We'll find one of my favorite pianos that I made. It's just a preset that I modified, but all right, so now we have that piano. And again, you can kind of go through. I would name these all and keep them very well organized. So we'll Shift Enter, and I just do Keyscape. Wash. Perfect. And then, like I said, you can kind of go through, load all of your different instruments. And again, to offload these, just so your template will load faster, you can do Option and then turn it off. And you can actually do multiple at once. So let's say, just for the sake of video, I'll just copy this a few times. Now on all of these, if I highlight them hit Shift and select them all, hold Option and then turn them off, and we look at the mixer, you'll see how they're all grayed out. So they're actually offloaded. So when you load your template, it won't be loading all those different virtual instruments. It actually won't load them until you turn them on, which saves a ton of CPU and a ton of time as well. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna look at is this control bar. So up here, if you just right click and hit Customize Control Bar and Display, and the first thing you wanna do is right here, change this to custom. And what that's gonna do is immediately make this much bigger up here and give you way more options to what you can and cannot see. And so I'll just kind of go through some of the ones that I have in mind. And again, I'm not going to go super in depth into each and every one of these options. This is something you can look through in your own time, or if you have specific questions, I can make more videos on those. But for me, you can put the sample rate up there just to make sure and double check if you're OCD a little bit like me, that you're always working in the right sample rate. Turn on low latency mode, which is always handy to use. Pre-fader metering I will use time to time. And again, you can kind of go through these and set it up however you like. All right, the next thing I want to show, just because I did get a specific question on this, is how to color code and organize your markers. So the key command to create a new marker is going to be Option apostrophe. And so as you can see, that created a new marker up there. And then to name that marker is going to be Shift apostrophe. And so we'll just call this one Intro. And if you hit G, it'll actually open your global tracks, and you can see that a little bit easier. But we'll just go ahead and create a few more markers. Again, Option apostrophe, and then Shift apostrophe to name it. And we'll make this the verse. Go forward a ways. Maybe we have a chorus, or we'll do a pre, and then our chorus. And then you can, repeat the verse. And then to color code these, if you again hit G to pull up your global tracks, and we'll just click on the verse and then hit Shift and click on the verse again. That way we can color code the verses together. Option or Alt C. And then you can choose a color. And then again, do that for maybe I'll make the intro a green, the pre, I'll just pick a random color here, and then the chorus will make maybe an orange or a red. And that's how you do that. So now you close this out, you have these nice color-coded and organized markers to arrange your song. All right, now one last note on these track stacks. Of course, anytime you want to create new groups, you can just go to this empty group, hit Command D, and then you can do this as many times as possible. So now I just always like to make sure that I have one empty at the bottom, but you can go back and, maybe you can make this one your drums and percussion. Maybe you'll make the next one your brass, the next one your strings, and then go through, color code these, and load all the different instruments of your choice, and make sure you offload them like I showed you. And that way, every time you open this template, everything's just ready to go, and you don't have to waste time loading instruments. You can instantly, just like I showed earlier, pull up an instrument, lay down some music, and just stay in the creative flow and not have to go back and forth and just keep making music and save a bunch of time. All right, and the very last thing I want to show you is something called Screensets, and this is pretty handy too. So you see this number 1 at the top, we're actually just going to click this and hit lock. And so now what this does, every time I push the number 1 when I'm working in Logic, it'll pull me to this screen. To better show you, and first we're going to hit number 2, so that, see, now it just changed the screen here. And so you want to hit the number first, but we'll just go ahead and make this full screen. Or actually maybe we'll make, I think I have this set up to be my mix window. So here we'll go open mixer or Command 2, and we can actually close this one here. We'll just make this full screen. And then now that we're on number 2, you can just go down and hit lock. And so now what this does is, again, if I push number 1, it'll pull me to this arrange window to have like I have it set up. Now if I hit number 2, it'll go back to this full screen mix window. So you can kind of set these up however you like. And that way it's just a very quick way to move around to different screens in Logic or different ways you want to have it set up. All right, I hope this video was helpful. Again, I kind of skimmed through a lot of this stuff just for the sake of the length of this video. I didn't want it to be crazy long and you have to sit through an hour-long video. So if there's anything that you'd like me to go more in depth on or anything you want me to cover more specifically, please leave a comment below as well if you have any ideas for future videos, obviously. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.